Supreme Court's verdict on Article 370 is out. In essence, the 5-judge bench has upheld the abrogation of Article 370 of the Constitution back in August 2019. The court, the 5 judges, have given a unanimous decision. That means they all agreed on the conclusions. They held that the state of Jammu and Kashmir did not retain any element of sovereignty after the execution of the Instrument of Accession and the adoption of the Constitution of India in 1949. The court said that Article 370 was always a temporary provision. So in short, it has upheld the proclamations issued by the President, firstly, applying all the provisions of the Indian Constitution to Jammu and Kashmir, and secondly, declaring that Article 370 ceases to operate. On the state's bifurcation into 2 union territories, the Supreme Court has now held that since the centre submitted that the statehood of Jammu and Kashmir would be restored at some point, and the status of union territory was temporary for Jammu and Kashmir, it does not need to look into whether reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir into union territory was valid. In any case, it has directed the Election Commission of India to conduct elections to the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly by 30th September 2024 and has said that the restoration of statehood shall take place as soon as possible. In addition to this, so essentially there are 3 different opinions that have been written. One, a majority opinion written by CJI D.Y. Chandrachud, and 2 more concurring opinions. One is by Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul, who, again, like I said, wrote a separate but concurring opinion. He has recommended the formation of an impartial Truth and Reconciliation Committee to investigate and report on the violations of human rights, both by state and non-state actors, at least since the 1980s, and recommend measures for reconciliation. He said that the first step towards healing the wounds was the acknowledgement of the acts of violations done by the state and its actors. He has left it to the government, though, to decide the manner in which the commission must be set up. But he added, and I quote, "The commission must be set up before memory escapes," unquote. Just to give you a brief background of what happened, almost 4 years ago, at around 11 a.m. on 5th August, Union Home Minister Amit Shah announced in the Rajya Sabha that the government had decided to do away with the state's special status. 2 presidential orders were then issued, effectively scrapping Article 370, accorded a special status to the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir within the Indian Union. It followed attempts to bring independent provinces under the Indian Union after British colonial rule over the subcontinent ended in 1947. And Article 370 was titled Temporary Provisions with respect to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In fact, this title also played into the Supreme Court ruling that Article 370 was in fact a temporary provision. Now, Article 370 essentially exempted Jammu and Kashmir from the provisions of the Indian Constitution, allowing it to frame its own constitution. It also spoke about the applicability of central laws to the state. So the parliament needed the state government's concurrence for applying laws to the state, except for laws which dealt with defense, foreign affairs, finance, and communications. It also gave the power to the president to apply different provisions of the constitution to the state, but it required the president to get the Jammu and Kashmir government's concurrence before issuing such an order. Now, Clause 3 of Article 370 said that it is necessary for the president to take the recommendation of the Constituent Assembly of the state before declaring the provision inoperative. And this is how change was brought about in this article. In fact, how this was done is that the then president issued an order called CO 272, amending Article 367 of the Constitution instead, which in turn deals with the interpretation of the Constitution. Now, this amendment said that the reference to Constituent Assembly in Article 370 would mean Legislative Assembly. So this paved the way for changes to Article 370 itself, because now they didn't need the permission of the Constituent Assembly, which of course doesn't exist anymore. However, the Supreme Court has now in its judgment held that Article 370 couldn't have been amended through Article 367, but this didn't come in the way of the abrogation being declared valid. I'll tell you how. It was because within hours of the president issuing CO 272, Rajya Sabha recommended that Article 370 shall cease to operate. At that time, Jammu and Kashmir was under the president's rule. So on 6th August 2019, the president then issued another order, CO 273, declaring that Article 370 would cease to operate on recommendation of the parliament. Essentially, it said that, now the court said that since the Constituent Assembly of the state had been dissolved much earlier, the Supreme Court now said that the president could have issued such a notification under Article 370, unilaterally declaring that Article 370 ceases to exist. It said that continuous exercise of power under Article 370 subclause 1 by the President. This article, just to take a pause here, allowed the President to apply certain provisions of the Constitution to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Like I mentioned earlier, you can read the clause also on your screens right now. So the Supreme Court now said that since this provision has been continuously used by the President earlier, this indicated that the gradual process of constitutional integration of the state with India was ongoing. It said that the declaration issued by the President under Article 370 subclause 3 is a culmination of the process of integration. Again, just to remind you, Article 370 subclause 3 allowed the President to declare that Article 370 ceases to operate. So the court said that this declaration of the President is a culmination of the process of integration of Jammu and Kashmir with the Union of India. After the judgment, Solicitor General of India Tushar Mehta said that 5th August 2019 and today's date will go down in the history of India. That's all I have for you for today. This is Apoorva Mandhani for ThePrint. For more such videos, do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.